Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for the invite. It's fun to do something like this. It's also new for me, but yeah, it's nice to collect all your thoughts and make a little bit of a slide out of it. So yeah, my background is in 3D product visualization. I've been doing that for around 12 years or so. And at Nollie Studios, we do a lot for mobility brands, so a lot of bikes, also tech brands. And now we are getting into the AI field as well, which is quite exciting. So yeah, I have a little presentation to go over some different types of products that I trained, some more successful, some less successful, so we can see what the differences are. I think I should share my screen then.
Maybe a question from my side before that.
Yeah, sure.
So what was your core objective? So like you joined the course and everything. What was your core objective? What have you been trying to achieve?
Yeah, so I chose to try to train a motorcycle because it's one of the most difficult things you can do. Because I've been playing around with training cars and some other subjects, which are a bit more doable. But the motorcycle, I knew from the start, like, I don't know if you will succeed in a 100% AI model. And that's exactly why I wanted to do it. Because with every step, I got closer and more details. And the workflow that you build around it enables you to do products for medium complexity or lower. And besides that, also to pipe into my skills as a 3D product visualization artist. Because data sets, data as gold is the old expression. It's also true for training models, right? And since I do have a pipeline to create a lot of high-end realistic renders, why not make a full data set out of it? Then you have all the control, you have the copyrights of those images. So that's why I'm trying to combine 3D rendering with AI model training and then also image generation, which we will see when we control the cameras.
Nice. Cool. All right. Let's get into it, man. So how did you start? What was the beginning task of training? Or maybe if you have some examples to start, that's also interesting to see like where you can land with like this sort of training.
Yeah, so I have a few slides because I didn't want to like grab images here and there, which or like do live training, which might blow up the computer while streaming. So if you want, I can share the screen and then we can have some questions afterwards, and feel free to chime in the meantime as well.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, do you see the deck?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, so as I said, this is going to be a bit of exploration about model training. For some more 3D stuff, you can always check out Nollie Studios as well. So let's see. We have a few different use cases, in my opinion, with AI model training. We can use it for concept design. So we don't need a super accurate product here, but it's very handy to quickly iterate and browse ideas with the client, which we'll go into in a little bit. Then organic objects. This was a fun project because it was a very unexpected results. And here you can see the medium to high complexity. So from a car, and then we end with the cherry on the top of the motorcycle. So what we did here is we already were commissioned to make the renders for this brand. So we had a bunch of photorealistic renders already for their website, their catalogs, their print. So they were like, okay, why not use those same renders and create a quick AI model? And then using also a depth map, which we'll cover in a bit, we could lock the camera and then quickly iterate a lot of different concepts for their more creative and conceptual launch imagery. So doing this by hand in 3D, yeah, would take a lot more time going back and forth with the client. So now we could just like present a lot of moods, and once a mood is defined, we can dive into it, upscale it in AI, or even recreate it in 3D if you need even more control.
Nice.
Then you have a question in the meantime, or?
No, good to go.
Okay, cool. This is a little bit of an out of my product visualization, but I want to share it because it was a really fun thing to do, and it was a really interesting, unexpected result, because for this is a really cool company that grows and maintains Mediterranean trees in south of Spain, but then transports them to colder climates like the Netherlands and Germany. So then it was, he has like 40 trees. So we're like, okay, how do we do that? Like, are we gonna model and render the trees? Are we gonna photograph them on location or mix and match? And then it was like, okay, maybe let's do a pilot, since I'm based in Madrid right now. So we went down to one of the largest growers in Spain. And then we took a bunch of photographs for the data set of these trees. And then we could train LoRa's for every little tree, because in this case, these trees are not something you can prompt, because they're really specific types of trees. They're very specific in terms of their length, in terms of their age, the way they look. They've been specifically chosen for that aspect. And yeah, the cool thing is, once we had a large data set, we could generate all these images, even on a clean plate, but then also put them in the luxury locations where, you know, the client might want to place them. So in, you know, villas or at the beach, like in a Dutch beach. And yeah, we're quite amazed that actually, since organic objects are not 100% precise, like you can't see if they're, I don't know, 1 million leaves or a little bit less. So actually, this was very surprising that AI works perfectly for this. So I didn't expect it in the beginning, but it was a really fun exploration. And obviously, if you can use your camera and go out to shoot in Spain, that's always a nice bonus. So
just a moment. All right. Let me just double check to make sure it's gonna work.
Okay,
Sorry for the technical issues, dude.
it's okay. I know we work with AI, but doing Zoom calls is still too tricky.
So much tech going around, like it's, you know, having
Yeah.
everything in order. It does take some time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. All right. Let's maybe start the presentation from the beginning, if that's okay for you. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem.
Just to make sure it is streaming now. Okay, it says starting soon. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, good. Nice. We're in. All right, so cool. Thanks for joining. Again, Dario, we had some technical issues, so sorry for the delay.
No,
But as you know,
no
as
worries.
you join, I will also collect the comments from everyone so we can, you know,
Mm-hmm.
address questions that they have and everything. But yeah, just to start over and make an introduction again, Dario is
Yeah.
amazing. And you know, we've already like kind of gone through a few things, but you know, just to for everyone captures what we have been talking about. Dario has been a part of our Comfy course, and before that, he's been working with Comfy, and now he dove really deep into model training, specifically on motorcycles, and he's done some incredible things that I'm just like, wow. So that's why, like, I'm super excited to have this chat today, like, because our students, you know, just like you, everyone goes in deep into their, you know, field and their interest and curiosity, and it's really nice to see the kind of takeaways you get, right? So Dario prepared a really nice explanation of his process on training with also like, you know, what worked well and what didn't work well, which I think is important to highlight, right? Because we all know AI isn't just a magic thing. You actually have to work with it and, you know, make it work for you. So yeah, if you want to say a few words about yourself and then we can get more or less started.
Yeah, sure. So I've been working as a 3D product visualization artist for about 12 years now. And at Nollie, we do a lot of renderings for mobility and tech brands. So think about bicycles, for example. And now lately, we're getting into the realm of AI as well, with, you know, image generation in ComfyUI, or also model training, which is something that I've been enjoying a lot lately. And I've prepared a couple of slides to go over like what worked, what didn't work, and some different use cases of training, some tricks I've learned along the way. And then obviously we can have some questions and dive into some more technical details as well.
Nice. Cool. So yeah, if anyone has questions at any point, just drop them. I will be checking them, and we can answer together with Dario. But yeah, let's get started with what you did and also why you did it. I think that's also an important part.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, obviously the title is for a motorcycle model. As you asked me before, I chose that because it's one of the most complex objects you can train, and I want to see how far I could push the diffusion model, but also my own skills. So then if you have the knowledge level of getting close to a motorcycle, it's more applicable to lower tier products. And besides that, I want to see how I can incorporate 3D rendering into this pipeline, since data sets are absolutely key when training. So why not leverage product visualization for your data sets as well? And I'm getting a little bit of an echo, but maybe it's just on my side. So yeah, we want to explore how we can use 3D for data sets and also to control the image and look at some various models we can train. Let's begin. So here are some different use cases that we'll discuss, from concept design to organic objects and to some medium to high complexity products like a car, or the most difficult thing, a motorcycle. So in this case, for a brand, we already were commissioned to make these 3D renders, photorealistic renders for their catalogs, for their website. So then we thought, okay, they need some more creative advertising for their product launch imagery. Why not use those renders and train a quick, small LoRa to do some rapid concepting? And it actually works very well, especially since we can also use the 3D model to set the camera in a fixed position. And then instead of manually in 3D, trying a lot of different angles, different lighting, we could generate easily like a lot of different moods and lighting conditions. And then with the client, we can dive into deeper of each concept. And once a concept is chosen, we can obviously refine the background in AI, like upscaling it, replace the bicycle with a 3D render, and there you go. Or you can obviously recreate it all in 3D once you have chosen the specific style that you like.
Nice.
Then this project was more like a fun pilot experiment. This client is really cool because it grows and maintains plants, Mediterranean plants, but in Spain, and then transports them to colder climates like the Netherlands and Germany, for example. So then we're looking, okay, they have like 40 very specific plants, like you can't prompt these plants. They're not available in 3D stock. So how would you go about to visualize them in the location of their clients? So since I'm currently based in Madrid, we had a nice excuse to travel to the south. We shot a bunch of photos of all these trees, created a data set, and then we could train a model, a tree-specific model, and generate these types of images in the location that the clients might like. So, for example, a Dutch beach or in their garden, in more like a luxury home. And since this is an organic object, it's interesting. It works very well with AI because you cannot see the amount of leaves, or if a leaf is a little bit more bent than maybe in the original. Like every tree is unique. And that's why we discovered like, wow, this is actually an amazing use case of training models, which before I did not expect because I'm quite product focused. But this just shows you that with experimentation, you can find different really cool ways how to apply AI in this case.
Nice. I like that. Something to highlight here, I think, is just the data set. You really just need to spend a lot of time on the data set and make sure you have images and they are diverse enough, but specific enough. You have the details and everything. So I like that you went there, shot the plants, and got it. Because without this, like it's gonna be a difficult time to get a high quality model.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in this case, also like photography was key, right? Because you can go there, you can shoot everything, you can make a data set of 100 images, process them, and then have the model. So yeah, data is king also with AI training.
Data is one of the most valuable resources available right now.
Absolutely. All right. So now medium complexity cars. I think this is a nice bridge between when you don't need 100% product accuracy, like when concepting or with trees, for example. Here you do need it. So with cars, I found it is possible with the right strategy, especially if the car doesn't have super strange shapes. And with a little bit of in painting, like usually the wheels needs a little bit of retouching, you can actually create like production ready imagery, in my experience. So this is a nice medium complexity training, which I think almost 100% AI should be possible here. But then we go to the challenge, right? So whereas
This is such a complicated product. Like,
yeah,
there's so many details in here. So yeah, let's hear it. I would love to hear from the beginning. Like,
exactly, because
what
this
were
is
you
also
what were you
it's not.
thinking when you said I'm gonna do a motorcycle? What was your first thought about it?
I don't know what I was thinking, man. Like, no, no,
The
for
chat.
like, let's just see where we can get. It's been quite challenging. Also because this is a naked motorcycle, so there's no fairings covering the engine, so there's a lot of intricate details. But again, I have the 3D model and the 3D assets shadered and everything, so I wanted to see, can we create like a full 3D rendered assets that also has the copyright is yours instead of just taking images from the internet, and also having the control to shoot all the little details. So for example, on the left, what you can see is with a car, you can get away by maybe taking 30 to 50 images from the web, do a little bit of post-processing and get a model out of it. This would happen if you do the same with a motorcycle. Like this was just a super quick test to see what the standards are for like 30, 50 images from the web. And yeah, you can see the details are very bad. Like it falls apart in the engine, it falls apart in the brake system. So we have to think about a different solution. Then on the right, you can see the improved results. So there's a lot more detail now in the engine, in the wheels. And this is where really, I think the 3D rendering and really expanding the data set to 300 images has helped, and honing into the problem areas.
Nice.
And here you can see a little bit like how it would look in my 3D software of choice, which is Maya, but you can do this in Blender and Cinema 4D as well. You can set all your cameras, you can have the turntables, and you have a lot of options of what to shoot. On the right, there's just a piece of the data set, because if I put the whole data set on, we can't even see anything anymore. But yeah, you can already get the idea that you want to capture the whole body in a 360 turntable kind of style. You want to capture also the top, even the bottom. Then obviously some engine parts, some logo parts, the wheels, which are quite difficult with AI. And then this is quite important. What we found is backplates. So in 3D, obviously you can set a backplate, background photograph, put a lighting environment on it, mix it, and then you can have a motorcycle in very different types of environments and lighting conditions. So we had a bunch more than just this, but it shows that if you only have a white studio, it will probably remember the bike in a white studio, right? So you want to have some different kinds of lighting environments, also some different types of backgrounds, so it actually understands how a motorcycle would look at night on the street or in a garage or all those kind of things. And yeah, people go back and forth on it, but I've noticed that it does improve a lot with prompting the bike later in these types of environments.
Absolutely. I think just to take a moment here for a couple of thoughts and maybe a question. I completely agree about the data set of like adding like more details or regularization images or like the black plates or whatever you need. I think like through like the sessions, we all had like discussions like sometimes with Dario of you start with the basic thing of like you need to have the bike, right? So you have the 360 from all the degrees. Then you start adding the details. So okay, the brakes, specific, shape, they need to have that detail. Otherwise, you have to have that shot in the data. Otherwise, you're just going to lose the detail, right? And then you suddenly start expanding the data set depending on the use case you actually want to do with this. So I remember you were saying like also you want to have depth of field in your images that is very like natural, organic looking. So if you add a few images for the depth of field, it's gonna understand better and it's gonna be able to generate it better, right? So very similar, if you want to generate this bike in any sort of like environment, you add a few backplates that are simulating the environments, and the AI will understand how to integrate the object into that environment, right? Also, just regarding the size and perspective, right? Like if you don't position it against another object, well, how big is it? Like how big is this bike, right? Like is it the mini?
exactly.
Is it a big one? So you actually need to like communicate a lot of information through the data set, so you're able to get like really good results in the generation phase as well. And for me, like here is like one main question for me here is you made this data set in CG in Maya, right? You modeled the bike, so you already have the asset, right? So why would you now train an AI model if you already have a 3D model? I'm very curious to explore this as well.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, and this will be in the summary as well. But like, I think you have to be realistic with what is worth the effort, right? So let's say this is obviously an internal R&D project, but if this would be for a client, you would already make the whole bike, you would make it photorealistic, and usually with a motorcycle or a bicycle, you would already render some of those images with a white background, for example, quite simple. But then depending on the complexity, it can be worth it to extend that whole data set because you have the pipeline here, you have the realistic materials. So it's not that much of extra work, especially if you have the scenes ready. Like right now, I have this data set scene, which is what you see here is not even 30% of it. But you can just add a car in there or another subject and adjust the cameras a little bit, and then you render out like 200 new images. So in that sense, it becomes way more feasible than doing a custom photo shoot every time. But then again, it depends on what the client wants. Like if they're happy with just some product images on a white background, yeah, probably you stick with rendering. But if you want to explore putting this bike in all types of different environments, then an AI model becomes more interesting, especially if you're looking at cars, because I think a bike is quite complex to go all this route. Like obviously for me, it was to push it as far as we can. But I think like the car is a good example of that. Like you can create a data set in 3D, and then you have the freedom to put the car anywhere you want. Also with regions, Europeans want a little bit of a different style. In Asia, it's a different advertising field, the same as in the Americas. So I think there the benefits really show.
Yeah, I agree. I think this goes to a similar point as we talked last week with Saul, where he's using AI as a render engine in a way, right? Like like if you render out these different scenes in 3D, I think it takes much more time and work and compute power than if you just do an image, like a LoRa image, basically, right? Or even control net LoRa to generate an image, right? So yeah, I think it opens doors, it opens flexibility of where you can put this, right? But I definitely agree with you. As amazing as AI is, and everyone feels like, oh, like we gotta do AI, it's gonna solve all of our problems. Really not. It's not always the answer, right? Like 3D is an amazing skill to have. It's just an amazing process and production pipeline. Why wouldn't you use it? So I like that you are thinking in a way of like, how can I combine like all of these different tools and skills and assets that I have to deliver like the best result for my client or like for whoever you're working with, right? Cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also, obviously, AI models will get better and better. And I kind of see this as an extension of where we're heading in the 3D space with digital twins, that, a lot of companies are investing in really digitizing their products. That is usually like 3D assets in a USD format, for example. Unreal is picking up a lot, the real-time rendering engine. So I kind of see that in the future, we might also have AI models per product instead of just a 3D asset. It's kind of like in the same eco space as digitizing all your assets for marketing purposes. So I definitely see that we're heading there.
I completely agree. I think the point here is also like you said, with a car, or like even a simpler product like a perfume bottle or anything like that, or just a bottle, it's easier. It's
Yeah.
so easy because it's not a
Hmm.
complicated product. It has a shape, maybe it has colors, maybe it has a label, but it has a cap. That's kind of it, right? With a bike, it has so many parts, right? So you got to really
Yeah.
capture the details. So I completely agree. I think a lot of people have some people have started moving into this direction of like training models for their products. And I think those are the people that are doing the best work right now for like the brands that are, working with these creators. So I think this will be a natural progression for most people. Like if you
Mm.
are thinking about working with AI, you should learn how a model works and how to train a model, even if it's a simple one. If you just do the first step, like in our class, we had a very let's say complex or like high level class on model training, right? Our mentor Tarkan came and he explained Koya, he explained the graph and all the parameters. You don't have to go that far. The important part is you just need to start, right? So collect a few images, drop them into like a model trainer like Civitai or Fall. We use Civitai in our academy, train a model, done, right? And then you will see how fun it is and like what more you can do, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and then suddenly you're training motorcycles. And you're like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and
Mm,
yeah, it's an interesting process, and also with another benefit of 3D, which people don't realize maybe, it's you don't have depth of field when you do close-ups. So if you would do this in photography, right, you would, do close-ups, there's always going to be some blurred parts of the depth of field, or you have to do focus stacking, which is quite intense to do. With 3D, you only have depth of field if you enable it. So you already get super crisp and clear images, which is very important if you want to capture the details. And the process of setting the cameras, I kind of feel like it's sort of like 3D scanning. Like you scan an object and then you see the model. It's like, there's some issues there. I need to rescan it. And that's kind of like how I approach this as well. You train it with maybe the first data set. Then you can see, this part didn't get enough data. So you can go back, you can render an extra few images of those specific parts without doing a whole new photo shoot, for example, and then render a new one. And you can see that it finally understands that part. So it's about really analyzing where do I need to put in the data.
yeah. It's all about data and communication. Like I always
Mm.
say this, it's all about information and how you're gonna communicate it, right? And with model training, we have the data set, and then we also have the captioning, right? So I don't know if like you have that maybe in the following slides, but captioning is just as important as the image, right? You need to describe what is inside the image so the AI has a better
Mm-hmm.
time understanding what is inside the image and interpret it later when you ask for that image, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have something about that, but I'll keep that short because it's a whole new webinar on just captioning, basically. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, to round this off, beneath here, you can see some tiled crops, which came from Tarkan Sarim. I think he was the first, I think, that showed it. This is quite interesting. So you can take high resolution images, maybe like 8K, 10K, and then you kind of cut them in little pieces, but with some overlap. And I think it works reasonably well for product. I know Tarkam used it for skin and pores, and I think for that use case, it's amazing. I'm still testing how many tiled crops to use. Like in the second one, I used just a few. So that's still an experimentation phase, but it's very handy if you don't have the ability to create 200 renders. You only have a couple of high-res images. You can cut them into little pieces and you have a bigger data set.
Yeah. And since we are here, just a quick touch on synthetic data sets as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because everything comes from the data set. And now we have seen you go photograph plants and use that as a data set, right? And then we have seen you build a 3D model and use that as a data set, right? And then comes the question of many people ask, I don't have the data set. Like I have created this conceptual character, like using AI. How do I keep it consistent, right? So like how do I train a model based on one image, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's also a lot on the whole synthetic data set creation, right? I think it's always a bit more sketchy just because you're adding the noise with every image, because just the nature of like generating images, it
Yeah.
is creating noise. So the inconsistencies stack up much quicker than they do if you have a solid 3D model, and whenever you rotate it, it looks the same because it's fixed, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you can create synthetic data sets with AI, right? So just for example, with the video effects where you have like 360 rotation, you can put an image in and it will rotate it 360 degrees, and then you extract the frames and suddenly you have a base data set, right? And then very similarly, as Dario said, you can blow up the image, you can upscale it, and then you crop it and you separate it into tiles, right? So there are ways you can create synthetic data set and train on generated characters or objects, right? But as I said, I do think like the inconsistencies start stacking up after a while. So it's always better, in my opinion, if you're a photographer, you're in an incredible position. You have an
Yeah,
incredible
absolutely.
position because you have a studio. You can take the data, the highest quality data possible, right? Same for 3D artists, right? You are able to create the highest quality data possible, right? So yeah, I think from my point, like some advice would just be start thinking about this, right? Like you have assets, you have data available, right? You can leverage it for your own benefit as new services as well, right? Um, yeah.
I completely agree. And for styles, for example, it can be quite handy to do synthetic data sets of like generating an AI. But for products, yeah, as you say, like they're going to be different every time. And that's going to be a problem.
Hmm. Cool.
Right. Cool. Let's go to the next.
There was
So,
a there,
yeah.
sorry, there was a putting out the graphs. I love it.
It's a lot.
Before we get into the full graphs, like there's a question from Christian on
Uh-huh.
LinkedIn. Do you have any suggestion for how to train a model to retain text details and graphics on a product? For example, branded soda bottle.
Yeah, like so text is always going to be quite difficult. You can get quite far by adding a lot of images of those labels, those texts. But what you can also do is train a separate LoRa for just those labels and text, and then use AI in painting with just that LoRa for your text and your branding.
I would say on this topic, you just have to include the detail shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say you can do it in two phases or in one phase, depending on how complex your actual sort of like your text is, right? But if we go one slide back, where Dario was showing the data set, like here on the right side, you can see the wheels, like it's a very close-up shot of the wheels and the discs and the brake system, right? So that is the detail. So if you include detail shots like this, where you just like take a few shots of the text, maybe you tile them so you have like very clearly visible details and lines, and use that as part of your data set, it will help immensely to retain all the different consistencies. Also, the base model that you use matters because some of
Mm-hmm.
them understand text better than others. For example, like Flux, it's pretty good with the text, right? As the Excel, not really, it doesn't work. So you're gonna, choose the one that is the most comfortable with it, right? And then the second part to this would be I would use in painting as part of the process, right? So you can generate an image and say, hey, put the soda bottle in the hand of the person, and it's gonna do it, right? But with this, you have a lot of other information going around. You have the person, you have the fingers, the soda bottle, the grip, the lighting, the everything, right? It's the whole image, right? So I would first generate an image that looks the way I want it to look, and then I would do in painting, and I would just like paint here a mask over the text. I would
Mm-hmm.
again use the LoRa and say the text, like write the text saying whatever it has to say, right? And it's just gonna focus on that, and it's gonna have much easier time retaining the details because it doesn't have anything else to think about or to, connect together into the process. So that would be my suggestion.
I completely agree with that.
Cool. Nice. Great question, by the way. Appreciate it,
Mm-hmm.
Christian. All
Absolutely.
right, let's go to the graphs.
All right, let's go to the data sides. So yeah, you don't have to, but you can go a little bit more scientific with all your data runs. And It's a lot that you can test, especially if you use something like Koya SS. So I found, to not lose track, it is quite handy to have like a database, for example, in Notion or something. So every run that you do, like you write down what were your learning rates or which optimizer you've used, and only test one thing at a time. Because if you change 3 parameters and you get a better model, that's great, but you don't know where it came from. So unfortunately, there's a lot of trial and error involved, but it helps if you are a little bit systematic about that. I know it's not for everybody, but yeah, it helped in my case for sure. Then the same goes for the loss curves. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I'm a data scientist, but you can already see from the lines that you can see when it's going wrong, basically, right? So you want the loss curve, which is it's slowly converging to understand your data set better and better. So you want to start it, and basically with a lot of spikes, go down slowly but surely, because sometimes you can see it maybe like leveling off. Sometimes it even goes up, and then you know, okay, something is wrong, and then you can stop your training early without losing, a lot of time and compute power. And then I think even more important is I save a lot of states or epochs during training. So it's, in my case, it's not like, okay, I set the training run and then at some point it's done and that's the final model. I choose to, at certain stages, save out the model so I can later test all of them and see which ones are underfitted, which one are overfitted, and then try to see the middle. So if you can see from left to right, this is all the stages basically it saves. I usually save maybe 15 or 20 stages. I take that whole grid in Photoshop, and then I really go by column and mark down which ones I think are the best. And then at some point you can see, okay, I had the most tags in this column, so this should be one of the best epochs. And you can train this, on a white background, but you should also test that on an environment, because in environment, you can clearly start to see when it maybe overfits, because then it can't generate backgrounds anymore in environments and it can only create the product. And yeah, you can see an example all the way in the left here, like it doesn't even understand what a motorcycle is. Yeah, in the small screen, it's hard to see, but it slowly starts to understand better and better, especially if you take your dataset images and look at it closely. So for me, it has been around, like in the middle, basically around 10K steps, 15K steps, which is a lot, but there's also a big data set. And I choose to overtrain my models, all of them a little bit, just to see what happens and to compare them. But you don't have to train this long in most cases.
Cool. Just a quick note.
Yeah.
Overall, I agree completely with what you say. The quick note for me is just it is experimentation, like always. So even when you generate an images, you do variations. With model training, it's no different. Like that's why I always encourage people just do it. Just train the first model and see how it looks like and see how, you feel the opportunities open up for you. Because you're not gonna get it perfect. Like no freaking way it's gonna be a perfect model, but you can make you can make it more consistent, you can make it more detailed. But the most important part is just do it. Just, try it out, see how difficult it feels, see how useful it can be, right?
Exactly. And yeah, you can go as technical as you want, but like even if you train on maybe like Fall or Civet AI, then still you can do like little tests, like, okay, what did I do if I change this in the data set, or if I change this? But yeah, I would recommend don't change too many things at once. Otherwise, it's just hard to keep track what has actually improved the model.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, so this is a quick overview how I usually do it. So we start with rendering the 3D data set, turntables, close-ups, rendering the backplates, so the environments. Then you have to process that whole data set. So post-production is basically just some post work, some lighting, some contrast, so the stuff you would usually do as well with your renders. Then this is an interesting thing that back in the Stable Diffusion days, a lot of people were just training on squares, which also works well for Flux. But I've noticed that, yeah, since Flux can generate a lot of different aspect ratios, also 16:9 or 4:3, it helps to already do that in the data set as well. And even more so because you can get more pixel data from your image if you have a different aspect ratio. And what I mean by that is a motorcycle, for example, is quite rectangular, seen from the side. So if you would have a square, you would lose all that negative space. It's basically wasted pixels. So if you have a more rectangular image, the whole image is basically covered with the motorcycle, which I actually want to train with. So for me, that has been a very helpful little trick. And then you can put them into image buckets in Koya SS. Image repeat strategy. Yeah, it's all a bit technical, this, but with Koya SS, you can determine how many times an image is getting repeated while training. And this can be important if you have an unbalanced data set. Like, for example, in my case, I had way more studio and close-up renders than I had background environments, because obviously I cannot make 200 backgrounds. So then what you can do, if you have like 30 backplate images, you can repeat them a bit more during training. So it balances out a little bit more with, let's say, 100 or 200 studio renders. So you can balance your data set this way, but you can also put more importance to a certain type of data set. So if you want to put more importance in, let's say, the example of the label of the bottle, you can set more repeats to that image. So you make sure that it's not just 2% of your whole data set, but it actually becomes something like 20% of your data set. Then custom tools and scripts. To the power of LLMs, we can now code. And I never expected that I would be writing my own Python tools, but it can be super handy. Like even little things like processing the backgrounds, like putting different colors in your data set, or like a tiny little script here is just it will analyze the aspect ratios you have, and then you can set also the megapixels. So usually you would train maybe on 1 megapixels. It will automatically crop it all down to the right buckets that I've chosen. I'm mostly training on 1.2 megapixels, and it automatically crops it all. So you don't have to worry about Koya SS scaling it down or blowing up the VRAM. And yeah, this just, I use Claude, and it's amazing. You can just have an idea. Okay, this is a repetitive task. So I just make a script out of it. There's a lot of tools that you can make to make this whole process more streamlined and automated.
Yeah, I'll just take a moment here as well. I love it. I love how quickly we're able to build tools, man.
It's crazy, right?
Custom nodes as well. We had a session on building custom nodes, and there are so many things you can build. That's why what I think is a bit of an underestimated aspect of ComfyUI is that you can build your custom nodes to fit your own pipeline and your own, environment, right? So we've also like with Benjamin, our mentor for the custom nodes, like he created the polymath node, and like he's really good at like conceptual building as well. We were talking, like I think there's this big need of creating bridges between, let's say Blender or Maya and, Photoshop, After Effects, and ComfyUI. You can build a custom node. That's it. You just go to Claude or you go somewhere else and you're like, hey, I want to build a custom node that helps me create a bridge with, the software. So, that is something that we had a discussion and started exploring as well. I'm super excited. I think we could make that happen quite easily, But to the point is, it's super fun if you are open to explore and you feel empowered, right? So that's why, I like our classes, because we like to give you empowerment, right? We just tell you, hey, you can do this, and this is the way you can do it, and then you do it, right? So yeah, building scripts, building custom nodes, amazing. I completely agree. You can just do whatever. You have an idea and you're like, all right, I'll build it. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So you're like, how can I do this? And you ask Claude in a few sessions, or ChatGPT, Gemini, and you can build your own things. It's crazy. Also for Maya or Blender, it's very cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so captioning. This is a large topic but I'm going to keep it short for this sake of the presentation, as it's more about 3D data sets. But what I found, for example, is that every model has its benefits and downsides, because you want to do a first pass with an LLM. You're not going to caption everything from scratch, or at least I don't. And a lot of people use Llama models. You know, it's local, it's free. But I personally am not a big fan because I don't think they're very precise, but they are good for a starting point, and they're quite easy to use. So if your captioning is not too complex, it's a good way to start. But I'm a bigger fan of ComfyUI, which I think is a little bit more precise in the captioning. So when it sees text, it does it a little bit better. It just understands the image a little bit better, in my personal experience. But again, also these Llama models are getting better, depends which version you use. So there's a lot of debate there. But I personally go to the API LLMs. ChatGPT 4.0 is quite good and quite accurate. But that has a problem that it's very trained on a lot of marketing data. So you can kind of see that the captioning are almost like an ad sometimes. You kind of have to tell them like, okay, don't describe emotions or something when you see a product like this, you know, because it tries to say, we see this motorcycle, it has an atmosphere of raw power. And it's like that is not useful for captioning. Then Cloud, on the other hand, like Sonnet 3.7, it's a lot more precise. It doesn't do a lot of the marketing terms, what I found, but it is a little bit less accurate, in my opinion, than ChatGPT 4.0. So there's still a little bit of debate, and I'm still testing actually this part. Yeah, the basic of captioning, obviously, you want to start with your trigger word, describe your image in detail, especially the backgrounds if you have any, because if you don't describe the backgrounds, it will probably bleed into your final images. And I describe basically everything, also like how the engine looks, how the lighting is. I've tried to do very short captioning. I've tried to do very long captioning. So I'm still testing what is best. So I don't have a definitive answer on that. Just like try different LLMs as a starting point. Be sure that you prime them a little bit so that they can give you good captioning. And then, yeah, again, trial and error is the way, in my experience with this.
For sure. Always. Just for me, like a great place to start and a good rule of thumb is you will, when you prompt, like when you generate images, you prompt, right? So like you will always describe what you want to see. So for me, I engage at the very beginning in a very similar thought process, right? How would I describe this? Like if I want to prompt an image like this, I have a data set, I have the bike, and I want to generate an image like this, how would I describe it, right? I think that just, if you're starting out with captioning, that's just a very nice place to start of like, write a prompt, just write a prompt for this image. You know, you do
Exactly.
the reverse thing. Instead of like getting the image, you are doing the prompt, right? But after that, yeah, definitely LLMs are incredible, but you know, they can embellish often. They can just be like,
Yeah,
go light,
exactly, you
hit
know.
the bike, you know, under a beautiful angle. All right, that's a lot of words and we didn't say much. So,
Yeah,
you know, the
no,
more
it's true.
precise you are and more concise you are, I think the better our life is.
But an important point, though, on casting still that what isn't here yet, it's about trying, what you're also saying, trying to generate an image with the captioning you created in the base model you're going to train. So if you use Flux, try out your captions and see if that image is close to your data set. And if not, like try to edit the captioning in a way that your generated image, untrained model, is closer to the data set. That will already help a lot. And that also ties into what you say, like describe caption as if you would prompt the image, if you would, you know, generate the image.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Nice.
So,
All right. So I think like we covered like two of the main topics from my side at least. Like that's data set and captioning. I think like if you start training models, these are the first two things you should think about. Like what kind of data set are you gonna have and how are you gonna caption? Yeah, so anything else you would like to share as like key points towards model training? You think for you?
there's a few
Yeah.
more if we have
Okay.
time, and then
Yeah.
I'll go a bit quicker. So yeah, training details, you know, I use CoiSS. You can try LoRa or Lycoris. You can try different optimizers. That's quite a technical deep dive. And as we said, monitoring the review. But then we have still camera control. So this is another benefit of using your 3D assets, because you can render out specific maps like a depth map, a canny map, or even like a custom map, which I've been playing around with my partner in crime, Salvatore Locascio. And it works quite well. You can set the camera and then you can just change the background. So it's also very handy to lock the camera and the composition with either the client or with your creative art director. And then you're sure that it doesn't really like do anything random. And later you can use that for inpainting, which we'll go into now. This is the ComfyUI workflow that I use for controlling the cameras. So basically, on the left side here, you can have a bunch of preset control net images. And with a basic switch, you can control them here. So if you want to switch the cameras, it's just like one press of a button. I use a control net, the Union Pro 2. You can also use two control nets, so one after the other, like one with depth, another one with canny, but I try not to put in too much extra conditioning because I'm already putting in a LoRa, which is like on the edge of overtrained, and then also a control net, and then a second control net starts to become a bit difficult. But yeah, all other than this is main Flux workflow. And then lastly, some challenges. As you can see, if you prompt the wheel as a close-up, it does it pretty well because all of the resolution gets focused on the wheels, the brakes, and everything. However, if you zoom out a little bit and you generate the motorcycle in, like, say, this environment, then you will see that it doesn't understand it anymore that well. And my guess is because the noise patch is getting very, very small, and the resolution is getting very, very small. So you will have some issues if the motorcycle is just a very small part of the image. But then there is a solution. Since we are using 3D renders and since we are setting the camera, we can render out a few pieces of that same camera angle, like let's say the wheels or the brakes, and we can simply put that on top in post. And this is a quick example, but if you spend a little bit of time, you can do some retouching, and then you can, as you can see here, all the errors are fixed, including the tire walls. So this is really, again, where 3D comes in handy, that you have the ability to render a photorealistic image and you have the camera control. So you don't have to try to match the camera later on. And now that control nets are so good, it actually works. Like I tried this maybe 6 months ago and it was shifting a lot and it didn't really work that well. But now with the tech we have today, it's actually very powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, some more key takeaways. I don't know if you're running out of time, but
That's okay. I think we still have like some minutes. And also, like, if anyone has any questions or thoughts during this, still very welcome to share. But I appreciate like this detailed like breakdown of everything like you've done. I think this is also like a very high level overview. And for me, it's also nice because you come from a place of expertise and speciality, right? Which is like 3D and CG renders, right? So I think for anyone who is working in a similar field as you, this is a very valuable overview of what you can do and what to be wary of with this technology.
Yeah, maybe people can take also a screenshot and then they can read it a little bit more easily, because if I go through all of it, I think we're going to run out of time. But yeah, I also want to mention, like, yeah, thanks to the Lighthouse crew. Like, you guys have been very helpful with through this whole journey. And I also wanted to mention Tarkin Sarim, Mauricio Tonon, and Salvatore Locascio. Like, they've been people that were very supportive and are super helpful. So I do want to give a shout out to all of them.
Yeah, that's so nice. I love it. I appreciate it. Like I completely agree. Like there are so many good people in the group, like from the mentors and the students. Like everyone is kind of on the top of their game individually, and for me, it's the curiosity and open collaboration that really like pushes everything forward, right? Because nobody really knows like what to do or how to do it, like we are all kind of like finding our position and place, and it's also depends on the person where they want to be positioned in the market and in the world, right? So I think the best way to do it is let's just talk about it, let's put everything on the table, figure it out, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, I love to see that all the collaboration you do with like Sal as well, and like with Mauricio and everyone.
Mhm.
Yeah. For the key takeaways, take it away. What would you say are the key takeaways for you with the learning, for the model training, but also in general, like with the course, like what has been like the key takeaway for you?
Yeah, so in terms of the Lighthouse cohort, like just the support you get, like you can ask anything, and you guys have a lot of cool mentors joining the sessions as well, like Tarkan, like Mauricio. So that's been super cool to just I followed most of them for a while, and now to actually talk to them is really cool, So you have like really a group of people who are on top of the AI game, and also your fellow cohorts who are in top of their game with either 3D or visual effects or movie photography. So that's really just really cool group to be a part of. Um, yeah, and in terms of the training and the rendering, like as you see here, 3D has a lot of benefits. So unlimited data sets without depth of field issues. You can have all the lighting scenarios and environment scenarios. You have the copyright of the data set. You can use the cameras to control the image, and then you can in-paint some parts of it. With data sets and training, yeah, I would suggest try some different aspect ratios and resolution buckets. Um, be careful with your image background management. Don't use just white backgrounds the whole time. Like change it up so it doesn't overfit it. Try LMs for your captioning and test on the base model. Experiment with your optimizers and learning rates. Experiment between LoRa and Lycoris, and track everything like a mad scientist if you are inclined to do so. And yeah, this I think is the most important. Choose the product strategy. Like every product has different types of complexity and needs a different strategy. Like very complex objects do need in painting, either what I showed you before with a 3D render, or maybe in AI with the labels and all that stuff. So yeah, have that in the back of your mind when you choose what to train. And then also don't discard training models for maybe concepting or environments where product accuracy is not the most important thing. And yeah, organic and botanical subjects work very well, which is a fun surprise. And yeah, be aware of the dataset investment and expected results, like creating a curated dataset and the captioning of 200, 300 images. It takes a lot of time. So be aware of that when you have to plan out your projects, scope it out. Yeah, be aware of that.
Nice. Amazing, dude.
Mm.
Incredible work. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
sharing
man.
this overview in a very detailed and organized manner. I do think you're a very organized person. Just like the notion that you, with all the tests and experiments you've done, I was like, yeah, this is very good. You keep track of everything, and that's why I think you can get very high level results, right? Because you can keep track of the noise and the randomness and the chaos that you're getting your way, and you're organizing through it and choosing the one that's like, okay, this is actually something that makes sense for what I'm doing, right? Um, so yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dario, for sharing everything. Amazing work. I'm super excited to see what you will do, like moving
Mhm.
forward. I think you're gonna do amazing things. I'm pretty sure, like I know.
Thank you, man. I
Um,
appreciate the support.
yeah, and also like thanks everyone for joining. If you want to connect with Dario, probably LinkedIn, anywhere else, Dario, you would like to mention.
Yeah, yeah. LinkedIn, I think is the easiest for sure.
Nice, nice. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for joining. If you have questions, you can just reach us, reach Dario. I'm sure he would be happy to chat as well.
For sure, for sure.
If you want to join us, we will be having a new group in August 21st. We already have a couple of cool people that have joined. We'd love to have you if you want to explore ComfyUI for like, production level work or just implement it inside your process and your company and your work. So yeah, we'll leave a link to that as well. But other than that, appreciate your time and yeah, have a good day.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Bye bye.
Ciao. Bye bye.